Andrew joins us right now, and it is a thrill to be able to talk with one of 37's teammates, because it's often said you can fool the fans, you can fool the media, but you can't fool the guys in the room. We've yet to find a single teammate that has anything but great things to say about Patrice Bergeron. What's your favorite Bergeron story?
Yeah, you're going to have a hard time finding anything not positive. Honestly, my favorite memories, I sent a little video this morning, and the thing I thanked him for was for being the kind of guy that would join me on the road to go do weird things. You know, if we want to go to see a museum or, you know, go visit the White House or something like that, like just to walk around it. We did a bunch of dinners at Whole Foods, just going up and down the, you know, in the salad bar or something like that. So he was always game for, you know, doing things that were a little bit different on the road and having some really great conversations, and just a wonderful man. I mean, on the ice, obviously, you know, everybody sees that, but just on the road and being able to, you know, have some deeper conversations about life and philosophy, and he was just full of questions, and so he was always a gamer for that, and I was pretty appreciative.
Andrew, you know, we'd be hard-pressed. It's hard to imagine, I guess a better way of saying it, to envision a better two-way player. He's had a stranglehold on the Selke really for most of his career, six-time winner. But your impressions, can you describe him as a leader? You got a great chance to observe him over the course of your several years with the Bruins. What's Patrice Bergeron like as a leader within that group?
Well, I mean, the best leaders I've ever played with, they're all authentic, right? So that he's not trying to be something he's not. Like, that's just who he is. He I don't think would be able to imagine a different way to play the game other than being responsible. Like, that's his job, and he'd probably, you know, if he told you that's what I get paid to do, like that's what he gets paid. He's giving it to you the honest way that he actually thinks, and he couldn't imagine, I don't think, a way of playing where, you know, he gave up his defensive responsibilities. I don't think he could imagine a way of playing, you know, through all the pain and injuries that he's done. You know, he's got a laundry list of things during different playoff runs where, you know, he was like Ferris Bueller's day off, or not Ferris Bueller, I mean, Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I'm mixing up my 80s references, but Weekend at Bernie's, you know, just rolling them out there and trying to make it work. But he wouldn't expect it any other way. He didn't want, you know, the pat on the back or the trophies or, you know, the awards. I'm sure he appreciates them, but that's not the reason he's doing it. He just does it because he's authentically a really good human being, a good hockey player, a good teammate, and couldn't imagine it any other way.
In his later years, in his role as a leader for the Boston Bruins, guys came along like Charlie McAvoy, and no one was ever hazed or treated differently because they were a rookie. That culture was so special that it helped propel them to his last Stanley Cup final in 2019. What can you say about that element to his DNA and the larger picture, the room, that the Bruins had such special culture, and you were a part of it for many years?
Well, I mean, that's probably, I still cheer for the Bruins because I know that the culture still exists. And I think that's, if you talk to Chara or myself or, you know, Claude Julien or, you know, so that group that was there early, you know, trying to build back to the playoffs and just getting to the playoffs and being respectable and having people around the city wear Bruins hats again or jerseys. I mean, there wasn't that long ago where that wasn't a thing. You know, it was all the other sports that were really getting the accolades and the success. So, you know, that culture was built up, you know, obviously with Patrice. He was younger, but fully part of the I guess committee that would, you know, establish that kind of culture. But it was one where we did actually sit down and have those kind of conversations, you know, especially with Chara and Bergeron, saying, like, how do people want to feel when they show up to work? You know, they should feel like they could be themselves. They should feel like they have a voice. They shouldn't have to try to, you know, like, of course, none of the hazing and stuff like that. Like, if you ask, you know, Marchand, his first year where he came in, he's a rookie. He's allowed to speak up. You know, he's allowed to, you know, pipe up. He's allowed to have just as big a role as, you know, a guy that, you know, played forever like Mark Recchi. But with that, you know, comes expectations. You know, you're going to be treated like you've been playing as long as Mark Recchi too, and you have to be as responsible as a player that's been playing as long as Mark Recchi. So I think that kind of environment where, just because you're young or just because you're on the fourth line or just because you're in and out of the lineup, like you're still just a bigger part of the team as anybody else. But with that, like the expectations and the requirements of what it takes to be a teammate, like that's also expected of you. So I think that's the Bruins culture that's persisted for, many years and has given them so much success. And the players that come out of there get it, and they know what's required of them to be professionals.
Andrew, an obvious highlight for anybody that wore the jersey in and around that area, the 2011 Cup run. Is there an impression, a memory, maybe something anecdotal that kind of sticks out to you about Bergeron through that period of time that was maybe instrumental in getting you guys to, you're the last team standing that year?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there's no shortage of time on the road, and you go for walks and you go for dinners and you go for, you spend so much time together. Obviously, of course, it was him in the last game that came up so big, and obviously Marshy doing a lot beside him there, but pretty fitting that duo really pushed us over the top that night. But that morning, I mean, it's a funny story. We always talk about it. Myself and Patrice and Char were walking along the waterfront and just getting the morning walk in just to get our minds off of the game and some of the pressures that were coming with the Game 7. But we were all just laughing and kind of talking about the road and whatnot. And as we came around a corner, one of the reporters was giving his predictions, on a radio call, kind of like what I'm doing right now. He was giving his live predictions of who was going to win that night. And literally in perfect sync, he was saying that it was going to be the Canucks, and got about halfway through the word and he said, Bruins. He changed his answer because he saw us. Bergeron was giving him the evil eye and obviously Chara too. But, we had kind of a good laugh about that. And, it was just, like I said, it was a kind of, he was the kind of leader, and obviously Chara was kind of leader that, they knew when it was time to be really, really serious. But they're also the kind of guys that knew how to really appreciate it and appreciate the moment and remember where they came from. We talked a lot about, childhoods and families and stuff like that. And just, they were so appreciative of just being in the NHL and have the opportunity to compete for the Stanley Cup. And a morning like that, it was, like I said, I always like to, when you can have conversations that are a little bit deeper than just the surface ones. And he's one of those guys that was always money with that. He would in a heartbeat talk about, just the deeper stuff. And that's how you actually get to know people and become, really close friends and teammates with people.
These are great insights into him, Patrice, as a person. And you touched on Game 7, the way he delivered. I can honestly say that as a fan of the game, I wasn't surprised at all. And based on all the mythology that surrounds 37, I would assume you, as his teammate, weren't surprised that he would elevate his game at the most critical time and help your team win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, he's just calm. I mean, right? Like he's never the guy in the locker room like frantic or. I'm sure you could see from his personality. You guys have been dealing with the game long enough. He's not rah or saying words just to say words and hear himself. When he speaks, it means something, and when he is leading a room, he's not doing it out of energy and like all the like kind of chaos that comes with it. He does it calmly, and he does it in a sense like we got this. Like this is what we've been practicing for. And the other thing I guess that just kind of popped into my mind that really sticks out about him, and it really pays off in moments like that as a teammate. But he was also the guy in practice that would elevate the intensity of practice all the time. If he was, on a penalty kill in practice and you're working on it, he was working as hard as he could to stop the power play and doing it with pride. If he was in a corner drill with you and you're going one-on-one against him in the middle of the season during practice, it was hard. And he was expected to practice, you're expected to practice hard against him. And so I think, when a guy like that shows up in a Game 7 of the Cup Finals, it's a combination of that, calm demeanor and just like I said, the way he operates, but also like day in, day out, like going as hard as he can and expecting you to go as hard as you can against him, because he wanted that kind of interaction in practice. And so, guys like that, like, it's not surprising when they show up for the big games and when they're calm and confident and when they know how to compete against anybody, because that's just the way they operate every single day. And not just in the big games. It's in the little practices and, the crappy ice rink in Wilmington that we used to go to. And he was working just as hard there as he did in Game 7.
Andrew Ference, this is exactly what we hope to hear, these kind of behind-the-scenes stories that just affirm what we admire so much about Patrice Bergeron. Thanks so much for joining us.
He's a guy to talk about. It's my pleasure.